You are not somebody's supply to be used and abused, okay? You are a human being to be loved, listened to, seen, understood, celebrated, cherished, valued. You matter, okay? Your feelings matter. Your experience is validated, period. You're allowed to feel upset. You're allowed to feel hurt. You're allowed to feel, period. You're allowed to be heard. You're allowed to ask questions. You're allowed to know the truth, especially when your heart is involved. You're allowed to be you and not an extension of anyone else. Narcissists aren't looking for friends or relationships or lovers. They're looking for supply, and that supply is you. So in phase 1, the idealization phase, the narcissist grooms you with intense love bombing and extreme flattery and charm and appeal and charisma and grand gestures and unrealistic promises, excessive attention, affection, all to appeal to your heart and weaken your defenses. So narcissists move really fast, they use extreme language, and they speak in false promises. And they're experts at like mirroring you, copying you, pretending to love and hate the things that you love and hate. So their goal is to reel you in and win your trust and make you fall for them and just brainwash you into playing their game, okay? But here's the thing is that narcissists lack empathy, so it's entirely a show. So they'll say things like, right off the bat, like, you're my soulmate. I've never met anyone like you before. I've never felt this way about anyone before. This is meant to be. I'm scared to lose you. I would never cheat on you. Like big talk like that, So here's what the Bible has to say about this. Proverbs 29:5, okay? A man who flatters his neighbor spreads a net for his feet. It's a trap right off the bat. It's a trap. 2 Corinthians 11:14, Satan masquerades as an angel of light. So once phase 1 is complete, the narcissist moves on to phase 2. And phase 2 is all about devaluation. So to break you down and wear you out and exert like power and control over you, the love bombing and admiration and just the idealization phase is replaced with abuse. So like stonewalling, belittling, degrading, devaluing, dismissing, projecting, deflecting, blame shifting, guilt tripping, playing victim, withholding, emotional grenades, gaslighting, things like that. Now here's the thing is that all of this abuse is laced with intermittent affection and love bombing to keep you hooked. All right, so here you'll start to doubt and feel confused. But when you try to express yourself and your concerns and just genuinely and sincerely seek clarification and reassurance and answers, the narcissist punishes you and calls you argumentative or other names or whatever just for expressing yourself and asking questions and seeking clarity. Okay, now I want to talk to you about these abuse tactics like individually and just kind of unravel each one so that we know what we're dealing with here. And just to be able to give you the signs to look out for, So stonewalling is the silent treatment, basically, but it's also like evasiveness. It's like avoiding your questions to avoid accountability. It's the refusal to communicate, to resolve, to reconcile, and to even listen and hear you out and receive you as a person. So it's rejection, but it's also withholding. So they are withholding from you what you really want, them, their answers, their communication, their conversation. And I'll talk a little bit more about withholding later on. So it's not that they are emotionally overwhelmed and like taking some healthy time off from the conversation to cool down. It's that they're deliberately shutting you out and rejecting you and withholding from you and making themselves unavailable and unreachable to you. So it's kind of like a threat and like a punishment. And stonewalling can sound a lot like shutting down a conversation, like leave me alone or goodbye, things like that. So you want to look out for if you're starting to feel abandoned or neglected. These are all natural reactions that we should be having to being stonewalled, basically. So the next one is belittling, degrading, devaluing, and dismissing. They're kind of like all lumped together, and it's all the attempt to dehumanize you through dismissing your concerns and validating your feelings and just belittling your experience. So over time and with consistent abuse, you become brainwashed into feeling less than or like subhuman or even just guilty for having emotions and just like wrong for existing. So the mechanism behind this is that you are only allowed to exist to the extent that the narcissist allows you to exist. So belittling can sound like you're crazy, you're too sensitive, you're being dramatic or overdramatic, you're delirious, no wonder nobody wants you, really anything that trivializes you and dismisses you as a person. Projecting is when the narcissist looks at you through a lens of other people or like their own insecurities. So they might accuse you of being the things that they really are, or what people have been to them in the past and done to them in the past. So like if they've been cheated on, or if they themselves are being unfaithful, they'll accuse you of being unfaithful, okay? So with projecting, you are never seen. This is why it's so damaging. You are never seen. And if you are never seen, your story isn't heard, your suffering isn't empathized with, your growth isn't celebrated. But not only are you never seen for who you are, because there's a flip side of the coin here, you're always seen for who you're not. And that's the damaging part. So there's two sides to that coin. Projecting always accompanies an element of false accusation, or even like sarcastic remarks equating you with someone else. And it can sound like you're just like them, or like, how many guys / girls did you cheat with tonight, kind of thing. Deflecting is when the narcissist holds up a mirror and everything you say to them bounces right off them and onto you. So when the narcissist is blamed or accused of something, instead of addressing it and resolving it, they'll shift the attention and the blame like away from themselves and onto you or just someone else. Remember, those who have nothing to hide, hide nothing, okay? So deflection is the telltale sign that a person is hiding something. And the mechanism behind this is avoiding responsibility and accountability for two reasons. First, to avoid morality, like that sense of right and wrong, and just adhering to any moral structure so that they can continue living their self-constructed hedonistic delusion, which is like the narcissist's heaven, okay? Or the second reason is to avoid the moral obligation to change, which always accompanies taking responsibility. And change is not on the narcissist's to-do list. So deflection can look like you ask a simple question, but their response is all about you and your mistakes. Guilt tripping isn't just about making you feel guilty, but it's also about making you feel like you're the problem, like you're the bad guy, like you're in the wrong, like you're not and never will be good enough. So you may not have done anything, but guilt tripping isn't dependent on you doing. It's dependent on you being, okay? And as long as you exist, the narcissist will give you something to feel guilty about. And the mechanism behind this is that the narcissist always needs to be right. So the narcissist is always right and you are always wrong. So guilt tripping can sound like it's all your fault, you did this to yourself, or even like you're supposed to be loving me, you're supposed to be helping me, you're supposed to be healing me, things like that. Withholding is friends with stonewalling, like I talked about a little bit earlier, but it's when the narcissist withholds something from us as a form of threat or dominance or power or control or punishment. It can be love, attention, affection, communication, resolution, answers, thoughts, feelings, truth, even their very own selves. So these things are the basic fundamental requirements of human interaction, of human relationships. But they're also our core relational needs. So to withhold them is to essentially say your basic needs are a luxury that you cannot afford. Denying them, cutting us off from these vital nutrients is basically like relational starvation, and it's detrimental to someone's humanity. It's an extreme form of belittling called othering, treating someone less than human or not even human at all, Narcissists can even withhold telling us what we did wrong, making us out to be the bad guy for not knowing the wrong, and subsequently not admitting to the wrong, then forcing us to grovel and beg and apologize for the wrong that we still have no idea what it even is. Okay, so that's withholding. Now on the flip side, withholding can also look like mirroring, or like a form of mirroring, but it's like, they can also use your own words against you. So instead of telling you their thoughts and their feelings and their answers, they'll throw back in your face something that you already said. So mirroring is more specific to the idealization phase, but it can also come through in withholding in a way, in a different way. Okay, playing victim. So this is pretty self-explanatory, but the mechanism behind it is, again, the narcissist is always right and you're always wrong. So playing victim can sound like, you're the one who's trying to leave me, or you promised you'd never walk away, you don't love me, things like that. Okay, emotional grenades. So it's normal for anger or just like emotions to gradually escalate, but narcissists tend to go from 1 to 10 in like a split second. So there's no gradual progression, it's like an instant switch. And it suggests a sort of incoherency or incongruency in personality. So what I mean by that is that we all have these different sides to us, like different inner parts. But the reason we're not multiple people is because those sides are all heavily enmeshed in one another to form a single coherent whole human being, which is us. And the more healed we are, the more our parts can become one. But an unhealed person, especially one who's experienced like severe trauma, tends to have extremely disconnected and dissociated sides and parts, you know? So they exhibit like sudden and dramatic shifts in moods and personality as if there's like multiple people living inside of them. It's a response to trauma. It's a defense mechanism to trauma. I'm not pretending to know all about the complexities of trauma, but on a very basic level, this is a defense mechanism to trauma. So they become basically ticking time bombs waiting to explode. And as a result, we feel like we are constantly walking on eggshells, living in fear that if we breathe wrong or take a wrong step, we're going to set off that grenade. So it makes for a very like inauthentic relationship filled with self-doubt, you know? We just can never be ourselves for fear that we're just gonna rock the boat. Okay, gaslighting. This is one of the most psychologically damaging tactics, and I don't think I'll ever be able to like fully wrap my head around it. Personally, I think it's like the worst of them all, because it combines a little bit of everything, like blame shifting, deflecting, projecting, guilt tripping, playing victim, you know, which is why I saved it for last. So, whereas all the other tactics kind of play on your humanity, gaslighting plays on your psychology, your sanity, your mind, and your reality. So it's when the narcissist will deviantly alter your perception of reality to make you question what's real and what's true and what's false and what's good and what's bad, what's right and wrong, things like that. Truth and morality make up the fabric of life and reality. And so when you tug at those threads and pull them out, you know, the entire fabric is altered and reality becomes a delusion. So the goal is to gaslight the victim into believing a delusion. Narcissists will accuse you and blame you for everything they've done to make you out to be the bad guy, all right? They'll inflict pain on you, then blame you for it. They'll stab you, then punish you for crying out in pain. So they will create storms, then blame you for the rain. They'll plant seeds, then blame you for the weeds. They'll bury bodies and then blame you for digging them up. This is gaslighting, and it's really damaging. Some other abuse tactics, narcissists will never take responsibility or apologize because, again, they're always right and you're always wrong. A clear sign of the presence of abuse is that you're always the one apologizing, even when the fault isn't yours, okay? Narcissists also, like I said earlier, they have no capacity for empathy or remorse or change. So they're completely oblivious to your pain. Narcissists will lie either directly or by omission, and they'll demand answers to their questions, but they'll never answer yours. And again, seeking any kind of clarity or truth from a narcissist is interpreted as attacks and threats and arguments, when all you're doing is trying to clarify your confusion, which is perfectly reasonable. But keep in mind that truth is kryptonite for the narcissist, and to give it to you is to open up a window to their soul. It's to give you binoculars to see who they really are. And this level of intimacy and vulnerability and authenticity is detrimental to someone whose entire reality is a show, a false narrative. So what does the Bible have to say about this? Well, 2 Timothy 3:1-5 says that in the last days there will come times of difficulty. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, heartless, unappeasable, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not loving good, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having the appearance of godliness but denying its power. And then it says to avoid such people. So that sounds a lot like a narcissist. Phase 3 is the discard phase, and it's when the narcissist has basically exhausted their supply, which is you, or sufficiently broken you down, or just found a whole new supply. Or they're just done with you, you know, they'll just discard you, literally throw you away. So it looks like complete, total abandonment, rejection, ignoring, ghosting, disappearing, blocking on social media, character assassination, and smear campaigns. And it sounds like everybody hates you, nobody will ever love you, I'm the best you'll ever have, enjoy being alone forever, you did this to yourself. So the Bible says in Matthew 24:12, because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. All right, now phase 4 is the Hoover phase. So the narcissist basically attempts to reel you back in by any means necessary. So begging, crying, admitting to wrongs, apologizing, promising change, love bombing, etc., etc. You know, basically repeating phase 1, the idealization phase. And it's critical to note here that in spite of acknowledging their wrongs and apologizing, this is all an insincere act. Okay, narcissists have no intention of changing. They have no capacity for change. Like I said, it's not even on their to-do list. Their only goal is to suck you back in because they need their supply. That's it. So this phase can sound like, I can't live without you. I need you. I didn't treat you right. I'll do better this time. I'm not right for you or anyone. Again, the victim mentality. Don't ever leave me. I'll never let you go. Things like that. And the Bible says in Proverbs 26:11, as a dog returns to its vomit, so fools repeat their folly. Okay, so how do we handle narcissists according to the Bible? Well, the first thing that we have to understand and really realize is that not everyone who displays narcissistic tendencies has full-blown diagnosable NPD, okay, narcissistic personality disorder. So all humans have some degree of narcissism. I really can't say that word, narcissism, that dates all the way back to the garden when Adam and Eve blame shifted in Genesis 3. These were the very first signs of narcissism. So these tactics aren't new, and they're not isolated to a disorder. They're all ingrained in our DNA as humans, just by nature of the fall in Adam and Eve and what they did. But in the case of actual NPD, it's a lot easier just to say NPD. Some say that narcissists don't have a soul or a conscience, but I don't believe that because that's not what the Bible says. The Bible says that our conscience can be seared, or that we can experience demonic oppression or possession, which is what we see in the Gospels. So the general rule of thumb is that wherever we see manipulation, we can automatically assume or suspect the presence of demonic activity, occult, or witchcraft. At the end of the day, narcissists are still made in the image of God, and their biological and chemical makeup, or their childhood wounds and traumas, or even the presence of demonic activity can't change that. So knowing all of this, the Bible gives us 2 ways to handle narcissists, and the first thing that we can do is avoid them. Like I said, 2 Timothy 3:1-5 says that in the last days, people will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, heartless, unappeasable, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not loving good, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having the appearance of godliness but denying its power. But then it says to avoid these people. So we can literally do just that. And the second thing we can do is to love them. And yes, we can do this from a distance. We can do this while simultaneously avoiding them. So Ephesians 6:12 says that our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but the spiritual forces in the unseen world. So it's not so much the people that we hate as it is the demons and the spirits and Satan himself controlling them. And it's a perfectly righteous and reasonable response, a righteous hatred, because, well, Satan ought to enrage us, So when we realize that narcissists are not so much acting on their own volition, but in ignorance, as they are literally slaves to their sin and being used by the enemy, we realize that they are really just helpless victims in need of deliverance. And it becomes so much easier to love them. So yes, look at this turn of events. Narcissists are actually the devil's supply. All right, they're the ones being used and abused by the enemy. And understanding this helps us to separate the victim, the narcissist, from their demons, and direct our love and hatred to the right places so that we can be effective in our battle approach. So we can love the narcissist and pray for them and forgive them, and bless them with deliverance and salvation, and whatever else God will put on our heart, while simultaneously hating and rebuking the spirits that are using and abusing them. All right, so what do you guys think? Can you relate to any of this stuff? And the last thing that I want to say is a word of encouragement. You are not somebody's supply to be used and abused, okay? You are a human being to be loved, listened to, seen, understood, celebrated, cherished, valued. You matter, okay? Your feelings matter. Your experience is validated, period. You're allowed to feel upset. You're allowed to feel hurt. You're allowed to feel, period. You're allowed to be heard. You're allowed to ask questions. You're allowed to know the truth, especially when your heart is involved. You're allowed to be you and not an extension of anyone else, but a reflection of God, period. You are also allowed to walk away, be free, and be at peace if anyone treats you less than what you require and what you deserve.